Melrose Place wasn't just a show. It was a mirror of desire, jealousy, and ambition in its purest form. But here's the twist no one expected. The real drama didn't stay on screen. By 2026, the cast has changed so drastically that some are almost unrecognizable. What happened after the cameras stopped rolling? Join us as we explore their real name, real ages, and love life. Thomas Calabro as Dr. Michael Mancini. Thomas F. Calabro was born on February 3, 1959 in Brooklyn, New York, USA. At 33 years old, he played Dr. Michael Mancini, the seductive yet increasingly ruthless physician, in Melrose Place, 1992. He entered the series at its inception and remained until its final episode in 1999, becoming the only actor to endure its full run. That longevity made him unforgettable, but it also bound his identity to a character steeped in moral collapse. Calabro graduated from Fordham University in New York City and built his craft in New York theater, including performing Oberon in A Midsummer Night's Dream. He later became part of the Actors Studio and Circle Repertory Company, a serious training world where reputation is earned through pressure, rejection, and relentless discipline. That path demanded emotional toughness over and over again. As Melrose Place grew into a cultural phenomenon, the weight of sustaining a single role year after year began to bleed into his personal life. In 1993, he married Elizabeth Knight Pryor, and for a time, family life appeared to offer balance. But long shooting schedules, constant public exposure, and the strain of being emotionally absent eroded that stability. By 2006, after 13 years together and 3 children, the marriage ended. Remaining tied to Michael Mancini for 7 seasons brought recognition, but it also narrowed opportunity. Attempts to reshape his career through projects like Nip Tuck and Without a Trace required humility and patience, stepping away from center stage into smaller, more controlled performances. The transition was not dramatic, but it demanded psychological adjustment, accepting that success does not always move forward, and sometimes simply survives. Today, Thomas Calabro is 67 years old. He continues working as an actor and director, favoring character-driven roles and stage work over spectacle. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, his legacy rests on endurance rather than excess. Heather Locklear as Amanda Woodward. Heather Dean. Locklear was born on September 25, 1961, in Los Angeles, California, USA. At 32 years old, she played Amanda Woodward, the icy, strategic corporate predator in Melrose Place, 1993. Her arrival altered the entire power structure of the series, transforming it into a sharper, more dangerous drama. Amanda Woodward did not just dominate the screen, she consumed it. Locklear was raised in Los Angeles by Diane Tinsley, a production executive, and Bill Locklear, an administrator at UCLA, who also served as a U.S. Marine Corps colonel. That combination, Hollywood proximity and military-level discipline, created a home where image, performance, and control mattered, and slipping was not easily forgiven. While other kids could be messy and anonymous, Heather grew up under adult expectations. Stay polished, stay composed, stay on, because the world around her rewarded perfection and punished weakness. Her personal relationships absorbed the fallout. Marriage to Tommy Lee collapsed under infidelity and chaos, leaving emotional wreckage behind. A second marriage to Richie Sambora brought hope, but eventually dissolved into conflict and custody disputes involving their daughter. Each separation compounded a sense of instability, reinforcing a pattern where intimacy repeatedly ended in loss. Health struggles gradually surfaced in public view. Anxiety, depression, and addiction cycles pulled her into repeated treatment, while arrests and hospitalizations exposed a life unraveling behind the glamorous facade. Even as audiences remembered her brilliance on Spin City and admired her Golden Globe-nominated performances, she was navigating a far more desperate reality. Now, Heather Locklear is 64 years old. She lives with greater restraint now, choosing selective roles and focusing on personal stability after decades of inner conflict. With an estimated net worth of about $6 million, her story is no longer about dominance or fame, but about endurance. Andrew Shue as Billy Campbell. Andrew Epley Shue was born on February 20th, 1967 in Wilmington, Delaware, USA. At 25 years old, he played Billy Campbell, the earnest, emotionally exposed writer, on Melrose Place, 1992. He joined the series at its launch and remained a central presence through its most turbulent years. Billy's idealism and heartbreak mirrored a vulnerability that audiences rarely saw in male characters at the time. Shue grew up in a high-functioning but demanding family shaped by achievement and expectation. His mother, Anne Brewster Shue, was a senior bank executive, while his father, James William Shue, was a lawyer, real estate developer, and political figure who once ran for U.S. Congress. Excellence was assumed, not applauded. The defining rupture came in 1988, when Andrew's older brother, Will, died suddenly in a tragic accident, permanently altering the family's emotional gravity and forced Andrew. That loss followed him into adulthood and quietly influenced his personal life. In 1994, he married floral designer Jennifer Haganey, and together they raised 3 sons. Over time, the strain of maintaining a public acting career while managing unresolved grief and family responsibility took its toll. The marriage ended in divorce in 2008, closing a chapter marked by endurance rather than scandal. A second marriage brought renewed hope. In 2010, Shue married television journalist Amy Robach, blending families and building a life away from scripted drama. That stability collapsed abruptly in 2022 when Robach's highly publicized affair with T.J. Holmes surfaced, leading to their divorce in 2023. The betrayal replayed a familiar pattern: trust broken suddenly, privately endured, and publicly dissected. Today, Andrew Shue is 59 years old. Having stepped away from acting after projects like The Rainmaker and the deeply personal film Gracie, he redirected his life toward purpose-driven work, co-founding Do Something and the social platform Cafe Mom. With an estimated net worth of around $100 million, his legacy rests less on fame than on reinvention, turning personal loss into impact beyond the screen. Josie Bissett as Jane Andrews Mancini. Josie Bissett was born on October 5, 1970, in Seattle, Washington, USA. At 22 years old, she played Jane Andrews Mancini, the gentle designer pulled into betrayal and loss, on Melrose Place, 1992. Her warmth anchored the series during its most volatile arcs. Jane became the emotional counterweight to chaos, even as her own life unraveled on screen. Bissett entered the industry unusually early. She began modeling at age 12, working commercial schedules that required adult discipline while she was still a child. At 16, she left home alone to work in Japan, and by 17, she relocated again, this time to Hollywood. The constant displacement, pressure to perform, and loss of a normal adolescence created an early pattern of emotional self-reliance that left little room for vulnerability. That pressure intensified during Melrose Place. In 1992, she married her co-star Rob Estes, intertwining her personal and professional worlds completely. In 1997, while still on the series, Bissett suffered a real-life miscarriage, an event so devastating that she temporarily stepped away from the show. The grief was lasting, reshaping her relationship to work, marriage, and emotional exposure. The marriage to Estes ended in 2006 after 14 years and 2 children, closing a chapter defined by shared success and accumulated strain. Starting over required rebuilding not just a family structure, but identity itself. In later years, she found steadier ground through writing children's books like Tickle Monster and Boogie Monster, channeling loss into comfort and creativity for others. In 2026, Josie Bissett is 55 years old. She lives in Seattle, balancing selective acting projects such as The Other Woman with a full-time commitment to writing and parenting. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, her journey reflects a quieter resilience, one shaped by early independence, private grief, and the decision to transform pain into something gentle and lasting. Doug Savant as Matt Fielding. Douglas. Peter Savant was born on June 21, 1964, in Burbank, California, USA. At 28 years old, he played Matt Fielding, the openly gay social worker, on Melrose Place, 1992. The role placed him at the center of a cultural shift in American television. Matt Fielding became one of the first openly gay lead characters ever shown in prime time. Savant grew up in Burbank, a city built around studios and industry expectations, where fitting into predefined images often mattered more than emotional nuance. Entering Hollywood as a young actor in the 1980s meant learning early how little control performers had over how they were framed, edited, or silenced. That reality hardened when he accepted a role that challenged network norms at a time when LGBTQ+ visibility was still considered risky and controversial. Portraying Matt Fielding came with constant external pressure. Fox executives repeatedly censored storylines, including famously cutting a same-sex kiss at the last moment, reducing intimacy to implication and avoidance. Carrying the responsibility of representation created a unique strain, especially as Savant watched his character become isolated, punished, and eventually killed off-screen. Even as audiences embraced Matt, institutional resistance remained relentless. After leaving Melrose Place, Savant's career stabilized rather than soared. Films like Godzilla and guest roles across network television kept him working, but the industry never fully rewarded the risk he had taken. That narrative shifted years later when he found renewed visibility as Tom Scavo on Desperate Housewives, where the cast won a Screen Actors Guild Award in 2006. Now, Doug Savant is 61 years old. He continues acting selectively while maintaining a grounded family life with his wife, actress Laura Leighton, whom he married in 1998. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, his legacy rests less on fame than courage, having stood at the edge of television history when the cost of visibility was real and personal. Courtney Thorne-Smith as Allison Parker. Courtney Thorne-Smith was born on November 8, 1967, in San Francisco, California, USA. At 25 years old, she played Allison Parker, the emotionally fragile advertising assistant, on Melrose Place, 1992. Allison embodied vulnerability in a world driven by ambition and betrayal. Her pain felt intimate because it often was. Stability fractured early. When Thorne-Smith was 7, her parents divorced, forcing her into a childhood split between households, routines, and emotional loyalties. The loss of a single home reshaped her sense of security, planting an early fear of abandonment that followed her into adulthood. Performing became both refuge and pressure. That internal fracture widened during her rise to fame. While moving from Melrose Place into Ally McBeal, the industry's obsession with thinness became punishing. Thorne-Smith later admitted to undereating, overexercising, and pushing her body to collapse, weakening her immune system and trapping her in obsessive thought cycles about food and appearance. Even as Ally McBeal won a Screen Actors Guild Award in 1999, the physical cost remained hidden behind a polished smile. Her marriages echoed the same instability. A brief marriage to Andrew Conrad ended within a year, followed by a longer union with talent agent Roger Fishman, with whom she had a son. That relationship slowly unraveled after 2021, culminating in divorce filings in 2025. Today, Courtney Thorne-Smith is 58 years old. She balances selective acting, writing, and motherhood, having stepped away from the relentless pace that once defined her. With an estimated net worth of around $8 million, her story is no longer about survival through perfection. but about reclaiming health, boundaries, and emotional truth after years of silent self-destruction. Grant Shue as Jake Hansen. Grant Shue was born on February 27, 1962, in Detroit, Michigan, USA. At 30 years old, he played Jake Hansen, the rugged, morally torn, biker-turned-contractor, in Melrose Place, 1992. The role launched him as a primetime heartthrob almost overnight. Fame arrived fast, and expectations followed just as quickly. His early years were shaped by constant movement and competition. Raised in California after being born in Detroit, Shue grew up in a household that valued discipline and achievement, pushing him toward excellence rather than comfort. At UCLA, he trained relentlessly while juggling academics and auditions, entering an industry where rejection was routine and success felt fragile. Breaking through meant surviving comparison, constant casting rooms, and the quiet fear of being replaceable. That pressure intensified once Melrose Place exploded in popularity. Shue became the face of the series, appearing on magazine covers and carrying the burden of audience expectations. While still navigating demanding scripts and ratings pressure, he left the show in 1997, later admitting regret, when creative dissatisfaction collided with career uncertainty. His personal life reflected similar instability. In 2004, he married actress Pollyanna McIntosh, but the marriage ended in divorce in 2011 after years shaped by distance and professional strain. A year later, he married actress Catherine Lanassa, with whom he welcomed a daughter in 2014, finding a steadier emotional center after years of turbulence. Today, Grant Shue is 64 years old. He remains active in television, best remembered in later years for portraying Blake Carrington on Dynasty, 2017 to 2022, a role that reintroduced him to a new generation. With an estimated net worth of around $2 million, his journey reflects the cost of early fame and the endurance required to keep moving forward when the spotlight dims. Jack Wagner as Dr. Peter Burns. Jack Wagner was born on October 3, 1959, in Washington, Missouri, USA. At 35 years old, he played Dr. Peter Burns, the brilliant yet dangerously manipulative surgeon in Melrose Place, 1994. His arrival added a darker, more seductive edge to the series. Wagner's formative years were marked by loss that arrived too early. In 1990, his father, Peter Wagner, died suddenly, shattering the family's foundation just as Jack's career was gaining momentum. Decades later, that grief was reopened when his older brother Dennis died in 2018 after nearly 20 years battling leukemia. These losses carved a permanent space in his life, forcing him to balance success with unresolved mourning. The emotional weight followed him into adulthood and relationships. In 1993, he married actress Christina Wagner, his real-life partner from General Hospital, and together they raised 2 children. Over time, the strain of parallel careers, constant travel, and public attention eroded the marriage, ending in divorce in 2006. A later high-profile engagement to Heather Locklear collapsed publicly in 2011, adding another layer of emotional exposure. Career demands only intensified the strain. Wagner balanced acting with music, charity golf tournaments, and relentless schedules, rarely slowing down. Even while earning daytime Emmy nominations for General Hospital and The Bold and the Beautiful, the pressure to stay visible across multiple industries left little space for rest or healing. Now, Jack Wagner is 66 years old. Now remarried to Michelle Wolf, he continues acting and performing, recently reprising roles that defined his legacy while maintaining a quieter personal life. With an estimated net worth of around $9 million, his story is one of endurance, carrying grief, ambition, and reinvention side by side, long after the cameras stop rolling. Laura Leighton as Sydney Andrews. Laura Diane Miller was born on July 24, 1968, in Iowa City, Iowa, USA. At 25 years old, she played Sydney Andrews, the obsessive, desperate, and dangerously vulnerable younger sister, in Melrose Place, 1993. Sydney was not just a villain. She was a woman unraveling in real time. Laura's early life was marked by pressure rather than protection. Growing up in Iowa, she was pushed into performance at a young age, becoming a cheerleader, show choir soloist, and later leaving home early to chase opportunity. Reinventing herself by abandoning her birth name and taking her mother's maiden name was survival, a quiet attempt to shed an identity that felt too small for the expectations already placed on her. That hunger to be seen intensified during Melrose Place. As Sydney Andrews spiraled into obsession, humiliation, and rejection on screen, Laura lived under relentless public scrutiny off-screen. Magazine covers, sexualized narratives, and the sudden responsibility of carrying a fan-favorite character defined by instability. Even her character's wedding ended in sudden death, a cruel narrative echo of how disposable women could be once their usefulness peaked. Marriage brought brief emotional shelter. In 1998, she married her Melrose Place co-star, Doug Savant, forming one of the rare relationships to survive that chaotic era. Stepping back from the spotlight to raise her children slowed her career but preserved her sanity, even as offers dwindled and Hollywood moved on. Today, Laura Leighton is 57 years old. After a powerful second act as Ashley Marin on Pretty Little Liars, she now balances selective work with family and creative projects, including revisiting her past through podcasts and fan conversations. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, her legacy is one of resilience, surviving fame without being consumed by the madness that once defined her most famous role. Marcia Cross as Dr. Kimberly Shaw. Marcia Cross was born on March 25, 1962 in Marlborough, Massachusetts, USA. At 30 years old, she played Dr. Kimberly Shaw, the brilliant, unhinged psychiatrist in Melrose Place, 1992. Kimberly's descent into madness became one of television's most shocking arcs. The character terrified audiences precisely because she was intelligent, controlled, and quietly broken. Marcia's early years were shaped by discipline and expectation. Raised in a Catholic household by a teacher mother and a corporate father, she learned early that excellence was required, not praised. Earning a scholarship to Juilliard came at a cost. Constant self-scrutiny, isolation, and the pressure to justify her place among elite performers. That restraint shattered in 1993 when her longtime partner, actor Richard Jordan, died from a brain tumor. He was 25 years older, and his death left her grieving privately while continuing to work publicly. The loss seeped into her performances, particularly as Kimberly Shaw grew more unstable, blurring the line between acting and lived pain. Later happiness came late and cautiously. She married stockbroker Tom Mahoney in 2006 and underwent IVF, giving birth to twin daughters in 2007 just before turning 45. Years later, another battle emerged: anal cancer. The diagnosis carried stigma and fear, yet Marcia chose openness, enduring treatment and reaching remission by 2018, then publicly advocating to break the silence around the disease. Today, Marcia Cross is 63 years old. Remembered globally for Desperate Housewives as Brie Van de Kamp, earning multiple Golden Globe and Emmy nominations, she now stands as both survivor and advocate. With an estimated net worth of around $30 million, her story is not defined by success alone, but by endurance through grief, illness, and the quiet courage to speak when silence would have been easier. Daphne Zuniga as Jo Reynolds. Daphne Eurydice Zuniga was born on October 28, 1962 in San Francisco, California, USA. At 30 years old, she played Jo Reynolds, the fiercely independent photographer with a bruised past, in Melrose Place, 1992. Jo entered the series as a woman running from damage rather than drama. That quiet toughness quickly became her signature. Her sense of displacement began early. Daphne's parents divorced when she was young, and she was forced to leave California with her mother and sister, relocating to rural Vermont. The cultural shock was severe, from an intellectually vibrant West Coast environment shaped by her father, a Guatemalan-born philosophy professor in political exile, to isolation and emotional uprooting. That rupture hardened her independence but planted long-lasting internal tension. That emotional weight followed her into adulthood and work. While audiences remembered her glamour from Spaceballs as Princess Vespa, Daphne's reality was less playful. In 2004, her life was abruptly derailed by mercury poisoning caused by heavy fish consumption. The symptoms were frightening and disorienting: memory loss, intense headaches, emotional instability, rashes, and depression, turning daily functioning into a struggle and forcing her to step back from the momentum of her career. Recovery was slow and deeply personal. Health fears reshaped her priorities, pushing her toward environmental activism and quieter creative work rather than relentless exposure. Relationships, too, unfolded cautiously. After 13 years together, she married businessman David Mleczko in 2019, choosing privacy and stability over spectacle after decades of uncertainty. Now, Daphne Zuniga is 63 years old. She remains active through selective acting, directing, advocacy, and podcasting, while preparing to revisit her iconic role as Princess Vespa in Spaceballs 2. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, her story is one of survival through disruption. An actress who learned early how quickly the ground beneath you can disappear. Rob Estes as Kyle McBride. Rob Estes was born on July 22, 1963, in Norfolk, Virginia, USA. At 33 years old, he played Kyle McBride, the volatile, emotionally scarred restaurateur on Melrose Place, 1996. Kyle arrived late in the series but carried some of its darkest emotional weight. His calm exterior masked a man shaped by rage, regret, and control. Rob's early adult years were marked by physical risk rather than emotional safety. He entered Hollywood through stunt training before transitioning to acting, a path that demanded constant bodily discipline and uncertainty. That edge stayed with him, feeding into intense roles like Chris Lorenzo on Silk Stockings, where masculinity was measured through violence, dominance, and endurance rather than vulnerability. His personal life became deeply entangled with his professional world. In 1992, he married his Melrose Place co-star, Josie Bissett, and together they built a family with 2 children. Over time, the strain of shared fame, conflicting schedules, and emotional distance fractured the marriage. By 2006, after 14 years together, the divorce finalized quietly. But the separation marked a painful unraveling of a life built inside the same industry. Starting over required reinvention. Rob stepped back from high-profile roles, choosing steadier television work while rebuilding his private life. In 2010, he married Erin Bolte, and the couple focused on raising their blended family away from Hollywood's constant churn. Career choices became more deliberate, balancing roles on 90210 and guest appearances with time at home. In 2026, Rob Estes is 62 years old. He continues acting selectively while prioritizing family and stability over visibility. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, his journey reflects the cost of living where work and love collide, and the quiet determination required to rebuild when both fall apart. They lived under the same roof on Melrose Place, young, beautiful, and seemingly untouchable. But time rewrote every story in ways no script ever could. Some survived, some broke, some disappeared quietly. So which transformation shocked you the most? And whose story did you never expect to end this way? If you want more untold journeys behind TV's most iconic casts, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the past always has more secrets waiting to be uncovered.